So today I want to talk about ritual and ceremony and protocols. And even though you might think that we're very precise here at the Zen Center in our forms, we're actually quite lax compared to many other Zen centers and compared to the place where I trained in Los Angeles at the Zen Center. And LA was lax compared to the monastic practice in Japan. So all of these protocols and forms are designed to help us with our practice. You know? So Sesshin in particular provides a container for each of us to deepen our practice and to penetrate through the haze of delusions that obscure our true nature. But we have to honor the ritual and protocols of Sesshin and practice in order to receive the maximum benefit. During my opening remarks, I neglected to mention all three of the Sesshin precautions. I mentioned no unnecessary talking, because we want to really emphasize that, because whenever we talk, it's like hitting a bell and it resonates for a long time as we try to unpack what we heard or said in order to make it conform to what makes us feel good. But the second precaution is no looking around. Just to focus on your own practice, not worry about anybody else's unless you're in a position of responsibility where you have to take care of the practice in the zendo and in the kitchen and in the samu and in the rooms. And Dogen wrote a fascicle called The Eight Awarenesses of the Enlightened Person. And there's a section called Having Few Desires. And he said, not looking around is having few desires, just staying focused on your own practice. And the third precaution is no need to exchange greetings. It's not necessary to say good morning or good night or good evening. However, if a senior student gives you direction or instruction, it's more than appropriate to acknowledge that you heard him or her by just returning a gasho. Like we have a guideline here at the Abbey when we send out texts about things that are relevant to everybody. We just want people to acknowledge that they heard it, and all they have to do is just text back a thumbs up or something like that, So it's kind of like to know that you actually heard it, like this. And I'll talk more about gasho later on in this talk. But also, we maintain the mind in everything that we do. So even during the talks, especially during the talks, like in when I trained, all the talks were in the zendo and we sat in zazen. And it was as if we were sitting zazen. We weren't moving, fidgeting, changing position and so forth. So we have these comfortable couches here for you. So, but still, I want you to, maintain the mind of focus, like I'd like you to actually have your feet flat on the floor. So that's good to maintain attention. And where are your hands? What are you doing with your hands? Or you can sit like Roshi is, with one knee up like that and the other one down if there's room. So the couches are a bit cozy right now. It's not a lot of room. But you may not always understand what I'm saying or Roshi's saying or what the other senseis or dharma holders are saying, but that's okay. Just let it penetrate, like a koan. And another thing is to follow the schedule and be on time to every activity. If for any reason you cannot attend something or will be late, please inform someone in charge. Your absence is felt by others. Mui, I don't know if he commented here, but he commented to me that he was at a meeting of the future of Buddhism in America, a conference, and he noted that the Zen practitioners were always on time at the beginning of every session. But the other Buddhists, whether they were Theravadan or Tibetan, kind of sauntered in when they felt like it. What does that tell you? That we're anal compulsive? No, it means we pay attention to the schedule and it supports everybody in their practice. I mean, not to be critical, it doesn't mean that they don't have a wonderful practice, but this is one aspect of it that's very important in Zen. And we do have a hierarchy here, and that's true in all Zen centers. And if you have trouble with authority, that's an opportunity to enlarge your practice, to include the nature of your resistance to authority. We have senior students who are empowered to keep order and to maintain the container that supports everyone's practice. So please support them in return. They're just doing what we ask them to do and what we trained them to do. And finally, don't take things personally. Everything is not about you. It's about practice. I remember somebody was talking about the book of Job in the Bible, where he had all of these horrible things happening to him. And they said the problem with Job was he took everything personally. Things happen, and they happen because of where we're holding on, where we're resisting. We need to look at that. When I first came to Zen Center of LA, there was a plaque at the entrance to the Zendo, and it was hand carved by Maizumi Roshi, my teacher. And it read like this: those who wish to realize and actualize the Buddha's way are welcome. Otherwise, you better keep out. It's not exactly a welcome mat, at the front door. Those who wish to realize and actualize the Buddha's way are welcome. Otherwise, you better keep out. Let us be harmonious, like milk dissolved in water. Temporarily, there are relationships of student to master and juniors to seniors. However, eventually, all of us will be Buddhas forever. We should maintain the Buddha mind moment after moment. That sign disappeared. I don't know what happened to it. And I mentioned this in a talk I gave to the Zen Center of LA, and somebody told me that they found it in a trash can. They preserved it, and now they've restored it, and it's hanging in the back entrance to the Zendo at CCLA. I thought it was a wonderful invitation to come and practice. Now, some of you appreciate ceremony and ritual, and others do not. Perhaps due to being exposed to hypocritical or insincere rituals in the churches and synagogues where you grew up. Now, although I was raised Jewish, my family did not keep kosher. I always thought of it as an ancient, obsolete practice. Some of the aspects of kosher, such as not eating pork, were quite practical 2,000 years ago, when pigs could be infected with trichinosis. But now, with refrigeration and other public health measures, pork is safe to eat, if you happen to be a carnivore. Yet, those who keep kosher do not eat pork. Once I thought it was kind of silly, but now I see it as a ritual practice that keeps one's mind on God. Being mindful of every morsel that one puts into one's mouth is a sacred act. In case 4 of the Book of Equanimity, it says, when the world honored one was walking with his disciples, he pointed to the ground and said, it would be good to erect a temple here. Indra took a blade of grass and stuck it in the ground and said, the temple has been erected. And then the world honored one smiled faintly. I don't know why he smiled faintly, but that's what it says. And then Master Bancho commented, he said, repairs won't be easy on that temple. So one way to understand this is that everything is sacred. In the Shobogenzo, Master Dogen has a chapter on how to use the latrine in a mindful, reverential way. I'll talk more about his instructions. Consider the following quote from a Buddhist priest. I don't remember his name. He said that I have been able to establish myself as well as I have has been totally because of my teacher's guidance. It was customary for him to visit the shrines of the various guardians placed around the grounds of the temple every day after morning service. One morning when he was making his rounds, he discovered a single chopstick in the drain. He brought it back and called me to his room and held up the chopstick and asked, what is this? I replied, it's a chopstick. And he said, yes, it's a chopstick. Is it usable? He asked further. No, I said. He said, is it unusable? And I said, it's still usable. Quite so, he said. And yet I found it in the drain with other scraps. That is to say, you have taken the life of this chopstick. You may know the proverb, he who kills another digs 2 graves. Since you have killed this chopstick, you will be killed by it. Speaking 4 or 5 hours on the incident, he told me how I should practice. At that time, I was 7 or 8 years old. His guidance at that time really soaked in. From that time on, I became very careful and meticulous about everything. Before each meal here, we chant our meal gatha about how 72 labors brought us as food. We should examine the mind with which we eat this food. Not only at the Zen Center, but everywhere we eat, including restaurants. And we always chant before the meals. Earth, water, fire, air, and space combined to make this food. Numberless beings gave their lives and labors that we may eat. May we be nourished that we may nourish life. As we take this food, let us fulfill our vows. We have all kinds of rituals that we're not aware of. I'll just briefly mention that in the 1950s, an anthropologist named was Horace Minor wrote a paper called Body Ritual Among the Nasarima. Nasarima is American spelled backwards. He was looking at his own culture. And he looked at many unconscious rituals we have that we esteem. And he said that he talked about the typical Western ideal for oral cleanliness, as well as providing an outside view on hospital care and psychiatry. And he said the Nasarima includes medicine men and women, a shrine box, which is the medicine cabinet. And of course, the medicine men and women are doctors, psychiatrists, pharmacists. Mouth rite rituals, brushing the teeth, and a cultural hero known as Nakni Washa, which is Washington spelled backwards. So, what do we seek in our practice, in our life? And how do we reflect on our own backgrounds critically and compassionately and move forward in this increasingly fragmented, hybrid, global culture? Our old myths may no longer serve our contemporary realities, and we may need new ones. With her attention to the sacred feminine, Roshi Shinko is looking at new forms to enhance our practice. There's always new upayas or skillful means. We should be aware and open to them and see how they support us. But is there a way for us to draw on old forms as we begin to prepare the ground for new rituals that will indeed serve to harmonize our inner and outer landscapes? So what should places like the Zen Center do with their old rituals and stories? Dogmatically enforce knowledge of them, simply make them available, recreate them, and adapt them? Some of you might cringe when you first see some of our ritual. And I want you to know that I cringe when I see the lack of awareness of certain aspects of our practice. For example, how do we prepare ourselves when we enter and walk in the Zendo? The proper way to walk in the Zendo is to hold our hands in shashu as if we're walking in kinhin. I see people walking into the Zendo with their arms down and swinging them as they walk. Put your hands like this. What does it do? It just makes you realize that you're entering a space that supports you in letting go of your ego, clinging mind, your habit-ridden consciousness. Now, of course, traditionally, the people who walked into the Zendo were ordained as monks. And those of us who are wearing robes, you see these long sleeves? If you don't hold your hands in shashu when you're walking, you step on the sleeves, trip. So they're actually there to help remind us of how to walk. So how do we prepare ourselves for each meal we take? How about going to sleep or rising from sleep? Upon entering their church, devout Catholics dip their fingers into the holy water, cross themselves and genuflect to the altar. They are acknowledging that they are entering a holy and sacred place. But what place is not sacred and holy? On whose door does the sun not shine? I have a distant cousin whose name was Wally Sheffy, and he became a Hare Krishna advocate and changed his name to Womapati Das. His Jewish mother was very upset, especially since he cut his hair, except for a long lock, which is used for God to hoist him to heaven. And he wore saffron robes and chanted all the time. And when his mother complained, I remember him saying to his mother, "What do you think about more, money or God?" When I ask you, where is your mind during the day? When you brush your teeth, when you eat your breakfast, when you do the dishes, when you drive to work, when you engage with others? Is your mind on the holy, the profane, nothing, or some fantasy? Through ceremony and ritual, we create the Sangha treasure and strengthen the Dharma treasure while manifesting the Buddha treasure. We have certain ceremonies such as Jukai, which we had last Monday, Fusatsu, or renewing our vows, and chanting to extend the merits of our practice to beings everywhere. With what mind do we perform these ceremonies? Being primarily a lay center, I have not wanted to make distinctions between monks or priests and lay people, since many lay people have strong and devoted practices. Yet I feel for some of you, the path of a modern monk is important and appropriate. But what does it mean? This is what it means for me. You can see what it means for you. We have 3 ordained people here besides me. You have decided that your Zen practice is the most important feature of your life and have vowed to see all conditions and circumstances of your life as opportunities for that practice. For those of you who have received Jukai, I would say that your Zen practice is one of the most important aspects of your life, and to carry it with you in everything that you do. Master Rinzai said, "Our true nature transcends all things. Even if the whole universe tumbled down, I would have no misgivings. Though all the Buddhas in the 10 directions might appear before me, I would not rejoice. Even though the 3 hells might appear before me, I would not have fear, since there is nothing I dislike. Our true nature transcends all things." I'm quoting again Dogen from Tenzo Kyokan that Roshi Shinko so marvelously shared with us yesterday. So your attitude towards things should not be contingent upon their quality. A person who is influenced by the quality of a thing, or who changes his speech or manner according to the position or appearance of those he meets, is not a man walking on the way. So I also want you to reflect that as part of our ritual and part of our ceremony, we chant the 4 Bodhisattva vows as a template for our life. We chant them several times every day. Numberless creations I vow to receive. Inexhaustible delusions I vow to dissolve. Omnipresent Dharma gates I vow to experience. Unsurpassable enlightened way I vow to manifest. So like Dogen said, your attitude towards things should not be contingent upon their quality. So numberless creations I vow to receive, that means everyone, everything. We just don't pick and choose. See? And as we chant these vows, reflect that our attachments to outcomes, all circumstances, are opportunities for practice. Everything is teaching all the time. Pay attention. And these vows are the work of our lifetime, and they continue beyond this lifetime. As I've told some of you, the vows of my teacher are alive in me and his other students. And I believe my vows continue to live in those that I have encountered. No, I don't say that this exhausts the meaning of Jukai or ordination. It's a profound and wholehearted commitment, the meaning of which unfolds for each one of us as we live it. So one important and regular aspect of our ritual and practice is gasho and bowing. Gasho is at one level of sign of respect and greeting. Particularly in the Hindu tradition, they say namaste, and when they gasho, namaste. That means that the sacred within me acknowledges, honors, and recognizes the sacred within you. And that's what the gasho is. It's a sign of respect and greeting. It also prevents the scattering of mind, and it represents the unity of opposites as an expression of one mind, the unity of all being. There's a story in the sutras that when the Buddha met the ascetics he practiced with, you may know that the Buddha, when he left the palace, he practiced with a group of ascetics, mortifying the flesh and fasting and all of the not wearing clothing. And when he left them to take nourishment and to meditate under the Bodhi tree, they said, oh, that Gautama, as they called him, he's a wimp. He's not following this practice. So, but they met him after his enlightenment experience, and he was so radiant and so spacious that they spontaneously gashoed when they recognized the great unity their former companion had directly and profoundly experienced. But this gasho is not just for those who are radiant and expansive, but it's for everybody. Gasho comes from the depths of enlightenment and the depths of our experience. In Soto Zen, my teacher told me there's 4 types of gashos that we use. And the firm gasho is used when entering the zendo and bowing to your seat. This gasho helps to establish alertness and reverence. And the gasho is, there's no space between the 2 hands, and all the fingers are aligned, and the tips of the fingers are opposite the nose, and the elbows are slightly out. And when you bow, you move the hands and the head together so the distance between them doesn't change. I see people who bow like this. Instead of like this. And the second type is called the gasho of no mind. And we use this when we greet fellow students and teachers, and it has the effect to deepen samadhi. It's just a little looser, that the palms aren't pushed together like this. And what I'd like to institute here for the residents at the Abbey is that when we to acknowledge each other, if we want to acknowledge, we don't have to speak. We just need to gasho, especially when you see the teachers or the Dharma holder mui, just acknowledge each other's presence. And the other two are used by the officiants in service. One's called the lotus gasho, and it's where the fingers are kind of open like this, like a lotus flower. And you use it when you're holding a ceremonial stick. And the other one is called the diamond gasho, where the thumbs are crossed, and it's a gasho of being one with life. Dogen said that as long as there's true bowing, the Buddha way will not deteriorate. So in bowing, we pay respect to the all-pervading virtue of wisdom. You shouldn't rush it, and it shouldn't be too slow. But I have to acknowledge that at my age and the condition of my knees and hips, mine is always slow. So you have to cut me some slack. Okay, but if you rush it, it becomes a casual thing. It's if you want to get it over with. And then there's a lack of reverence. If it's too slow and deliberate, then it becomes pompous and inflates you with your own self-importance. So everything in life can be a ceremony. Even being casual and sloppy can be like a ceremony because it's a ritual in itself, but it's chaotic and doesn't promote harmony and health. I saw a cartoon where a parent was in their child's bedroom, which had clothes thrown all over the place, hanging off the mirrors and really messy. And the child was saying, well, one person's mess is another person's deep experience of life. You know? Yeah. I think there was a German film called Enlightenment Guaranteed about these two German guys who ended up in a Soto monastery. And they were given Samu assignment to clean the floors, and one turned to the other and said, why are we cleaning the floors? They're already clean. But that's what it's like in a monastery. Everything is orderly and in place. Absolutely. So if you want to know the state of somebody's mind, just open the drawers, their closed drawers in their bedroom, and that'll tell you the state of their mind. So anyone can devise a simple ritual and integrate it into their daily, weekly, or even monthly as a practice. So like I said, in Zen monasteries, bathing and eating are ritualized and given the complete attention of the practitioner. This encourages a mindful approach to basic tasks, imbuing them with a transformational quality. You might not feel moved or changed by a ritual the first time you attempt one. You might be self-conscious or distracted. This is where repetition or experimentation could help. During sesshin, when individual action and group action become the same, then we have true ceremony, which unifies us and helps us let go of our self-centered interests. Ceremony is a way to regulate your life, and as such brings order and healing. So during session, when the wake-up bell rings, it's easier to just get up than to lie in bed for a few more minutes. There's a koan. When the bell rings, why do you put on your sitting clothes and come to the zendo? If you think about it, you get confused. If you just do it, then there's no confusion. That is the way of our ancestors. So Dogen even wrote about how to brush your teeth, how to wash your face, how to use the toilet and wipe your bottom. So Dogen wrote in the instructions to the monastery, to the monks, the four great elements, the five skandhas and other indestructible qualities are all purified when we wash the body. This does not mean simply washing the body with water. Innately, water is neither pure nor impure. Regardless, if water is innately pure or not, we cannot say it cleanses or does not cleanse. When we maintain the practice in enlightenment of the Buddhas and patriarchs, we use water to purify and clean. This is a Buddha Dharma. Therefore, when there is practice in enlightenment, it transcends purity, is liberated from impurity, and drops off notions of not pure and not pure. Therefore, that is why the proper method of cleansing, neither undefiled nor immaculate, is only preserved in the way of the Buddha. So all of that is just saying, what kind of mind do you use when you cleanse yourself? He said it can't even be explained, understood, even if explained in the finest detail. But then Dogen does explain in great detail. The face should be washed between 3 and 5 a.m. using a towel 1/2 foot by 3 feet. And he says, don't wipe your face and hands on the same end of the towel. And he goes on and on. It's very precise. He said, clean your teeth and tongue with a toothpick. I mean, they didn't have brushes. Relating to the tongue, never brush it more than 3 times. Do not make it bleed. Don't spill spittle on your robe. Don't throw the toothpick where people walk, and brush the tongue in private. So, and then chant this verse when rinsing the mouth. Rinsing the mouth, I vow with all sentient beings, I vow that all sentient beings may enter the pure gate and attain liberation. And he said, when your washing is done, your life will be on a firm basis and you can attain the insight of the Buddha. And there is a gatha, a chant of the bath, which I think is it hanging in the, where? In the shower room. It's hanging in the shower room. It goes like this. As I bathe this body, I vow with all sentient beings to wash from body and mind all dust and confusion and feel healthy and clean within and without. At the Zen Center Los Angeles, we had this chant on an altar. You're supposed to light a stick of incense and bow to the altar before you took a bath or a shower. So to chant it. And then what kind of mind would you take the shower with? And regarding deep bowing and prostrations, Kobun Chino, a modern Soto master who passed away a few years ago, told a story of dropping to the floor, weeping in uncontrollable grief when as a child he received the news of his father's passing. And then when he rose to his feet, both he and the world seemed irrevocably changed. I think of bowing that way, he said. You go down, and when you come back up, you're a different person. The world has changed. When we bow, we just totally put ourselves into it. Then there's no separation between you and the three treasures, between you and life, and between you and death. Deep bowing or full prostrations seems foreign to most Americans. In general, we're a fiercely independent group and view bowing and putting ourselves below somebody else as anathema. Yet, as I often say, there are times when Americans instinctively bow down and put their heads on the ground. As I've said before, it's when, for example, when they're in an airplane which has been crippled and uncertain if it can land. When they do land and disembark, some passengers will bend down and kiss the ground. It takes a near-death experience to bring one to appreciate their life. So every day we have an opportunity, bowing down during service, at the end of sitting, to appreciate our life. So here's a basic guideline for bowing in the Zen Center. When in doubt, bow. If you're not sure whether you should bow or not, bow. One of my acquaintances, James Ford, who's a Roshi in a different lineage, said there is no Zen without bowing. And if one cannot bow, if one cannot set one's ego to the side, if only for fractions of seconds, one will continue to stand in the way of one's realization. But with bowing, therein lies the secret of our way, the secret that is no secret. So if you want to know the secret, it's just this. And that's what bowing is, just this. With an authentic bow, with our hearts letting go again, just for a fraction of a second, then the universe reveals itself. It's that simple. And one more thing, if you can do it, if I can do it, then you can do it. It is a great secret of our Zen way, and it's been revealed for the healing of the earth. When we bow, we just give everything away. When we chant, we give everything away. And when we eat, we're nourished in order to nourish others. If we give everything away, then we'll be unencumbered. And when we're unencumbered, there's no limit to what we can accomplish. Unencumber yourself. Let go of whatever you're holding on to that's keeping you from revealing yourself as the Buddha. So please do your best.